I'm Andrew with JVR Industries, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up and install your JVR Certified rebuilt Rollstock packaging machine. The intent of this video is to assist our customers and distributors on the steps necessary to get their machine up and running for the very first time. If you're unsure how to proceed or need additional clarification, please don't hesitate to contact our offices. Now let's get started. Depending on your transportation method, your unit may arrive secured to a pallet or fastened directly to a flatbed trailer. In most situations, you will need access to a forklift for unloading. However, we can work with you to accommodate your specific situation. The customer receiving this machine does not have a loading dock, so we've mounted a reinforced bracket to make it easier to pull the machine from the nose of the trailer to the back. If your machine was delivered via an independent dedicated transport service, then it likely won't be on a pallet. In these situations, we work directly with your driver during the loading process and provide instructions on how best to unload. Upon arrival at your facility, these drivers will work with you to unload as quickly and safely as possible. In all cases, pictures will be provided so our customers can plan and know what to expect when it arrives. It's important that these machines be lifted in the correct location in order to balance the weight and safely move them. If using a forklift, then you'll want to widen your forks and lift left of center due to the added weight from the electrical cabinet. It's best practice to raise slightly and give your machine a shake to confirm it's stable before proceeding further. You likely don't have a clear 15-foot wide pathway to move your machine around, so you'll need to move it lengthwise. It's possible to move these using a couple of pallet jacks and some thoughtfully placed pallets, but a good set of tripod dollies will make your job a lot easier. Due to their weight and narrow stance, please be cautious when moving your unit, especially when going over cracks, drains, or dips in the floor. When placing your machine, please consider an adequate clearance on all four sides. The electrical cabinet doors require at least 2 feet on the backside to open. You'll want plenty of room on the discharge end for your product to land into lugs, on a table, or a conveyor. The front side will be used for loading, and it is your access point to the machine's control interface. Next, it's time to level your machine. Place a level on the seal head to check, and adjust the 4 feet until level in both the length and width directions. Once set, lock down on the jam nuts to provide additional stability. Now it's time to connect your utilities. These machines require a clean and dry compressed air connection. The supply line needs to have a 1/2 inch ID and your compressor rated at 20 CFM at 100 PSI. A refrigerated air dryer is recommended and will help protect your machine's pneumatic valve assembly. You will be connecting to a 1/2 inch female threaded pipe fitting. The water supply loops through the machine, and you have the option of connecting your municipal water or a closed loop circulator. A closed loop circulator will not only save water, but prevent corrosion and buildup of calcium deposits, which leads to blockages and costly maintenance. Depending on the operating room temperature, customers have the option of an air-cooled circulator or, like this one, a refrigerated chiller. If ordered with your machine, simply connect the outlet from the circulator to your machine's water in port and connect the inlet from your circulator to the machine's water out port. Next, you can fill your unit with distilled water or use our cooling fluid for the best performance. Finally, plug your circulator into the receptacle on the side of the cabinet. No need to turn these units on or off. The machine's heating system controls them, so they only operate when needed. Next, you'll need an electrician to wire up your 220 volt 3-phase power supply. Your unit will require 40 amps or more, depending on the options. Please check the amperage requirement listed on your machine ID tag. Now that our utilities are hooked up, let's get this machine set up so we can start running. First, locate your guards. Now, depending on how the machine shipped, they may already be in place and strapped down, or you could find that they are wrapped in bubble wrap. In either case, let's make sure they're in the correct locations. On the newer machines that we send out, we've been marking and stamping each guard. So you'll find a 1 on this guard with a 1 corresponding on the deck of the machine. They just hook on simply, lift up, and they hook onto these bolts, and then they sit on the deck. We got a 2 with a 2 here. And if you do not have these numbers, another way of checking to see where they go is by lining up the magnet on the guard with the sensor on the deck of the machine. So there's this gray little circle right here, and if you flip the guard upside down, you're going to see a pressed-in magnet. That pressed-in magnet will line up with the gray dot. Now let's locate your trim canister. Your trim canister will be either on a pallet or it'll be wrapped up and sent possibly even on the machine. Here's our unit. If you take off the lid, inside you're going to find your hoses. These are what we're going to connect to the discharge end of the machine. Let's take our hoses out, set them aside for now. Trim canister bucket will slide onto the bracket. This is our JVR aftermarket reinforced canister lid. That plugs into the port here. And then our hoses will also plug in to our lid. And then what I like to do is have the far hose go to the close port, and then the near hose will come around and connect to the far port. And it'll kind of just tuck up and underneath the machine to stay out of the way. Now let's get your vacuum pump. This is our Value Series 100. This is a new pump. Typically we provide our customers the option with getting a new value pump, or you can go with a rebuilt Bush vacuum pump. We also will have options for larger pumps depending on the flow that you're looking for. But find your pump, move it over to the machine. This cam lock, this is for connecting to the machine itself, right here. And then locate the electrical plug from the pump, and that will plug into the cabinet. All right, now we're ready to turn on the machine. So locate your main switch and switch it to the on position. Now let's come over to the HMI, and in this case, the screen did not fire up. Don't worry, it's most likely because your e-stop is pushed in. So turn the e-stop to release it. You'll hear the air initiate, and then the screen will come on, and give it a few seconds to go through the boot up procedure. Once booted up, all you gotta do is hit the continue. If all the safeties are met, you'll get all safeties made, and you can hit the safety button. If that screen does not appear, there's a good chance that one of your guards are not in place. In this case, I have the ceiling guard lifted up, so it's giving me that fault message. If I lower it back down, I'll get the all safeties made, hit the safety key, and you'll get to the main screen. To make sure our motors are running in the correct direction, the easiest way is to check our trim canister. If it's running correctly, then we know all the other motors are going to be running correctly as well. So turn on your trim canister on the main screen. It'll go from red to green. Then come down to the discharge end and feel your trim scrap ports, and if they're sucking, then you know they're working. If you don't feel any suction, or if anything, if you feel that they're blowing, then that means that our motor is running backwards. And in this case, you're gonna have to have your electrician switch 2 legs on your incoming line to make sure that all the motors are reversed and running correctly. So now we can get the heaters turned on. It'll take 5 to 10 minutes for them to heat up. So once the light goes from red to green, you can wait a few seconds and you will see our forming and seal numbers light up red, and that will tell us that they are starting to heat up. Now while we're waiting for that, we can come down to the in-feed side of the machine and we can get our forming film. So our forming film is always going to be on the bottom and our non-forming film will be on the top. We can get this loaded up and ready to run. So I'm going to grab our roll. And look at the diagram that's on the label on the machine. You're going to see a sealant in and sealant out. Almost all films on the market are going to be sealant in, so you're going to be following the solid line that's going around the rollers. So on the forming film, we want the roll coming off and unwinding in the clockwise direction. So right now I'm holding this the opposite way. I'm going to flip it around, peel off the tape, lift this up, Slide the roll onto the spindle. And then the guide arm is going to come down. And what you want is you want the collar to be resting on the outside of the film. So we're going to take the roll, we're going to go around this roller in the right above, as you can see here, and then following we're going to go around the dancing arm. This is called our dancing arm. And we're going to come back around and we're going to go on the back side of this roller, which is right below the large roller. And then give yourself a good foot or two of extra film and place it on top of the large roller and give it a little shimmy back and forth so that the film falls into the clips. So leave some slack in your film, because what we're going to do next is come down and hit the advance key on our controls. Bottom left corner, if you hit advance, it's going to move the chains one advance distance. And what we're going to see is the film get grabbed by the clips. We'll hit it a few more times until that film is brought into the loading area. Okay, so now I've got the film in the loading area. I'm going to take this flap and we're going to end up trimming that off, but before I do that, we're going to come over here and make sure that the film is being properly engaged. And what we want to look is to make sure that the film is in the clip an equal amount on the back side clip as it is on the front side clip. If we notice that it's shifted back or forward, you might want to give it a couple more advances just to make sure that it's not like an initial alignment issue. But if necessary, we can adjust with this knob. So let's grab the top roll of film and come on down to the sealing end of the machine. This is our non-forming film, so this film will not form a pocket. This is just used for lidding and going on top. We're going to want to bring back our guide arm. We're going to look at our film path drawing, and again, we're going to be following the sealant in. Slide it onto our spindle. Bring the guide arm down, make sure it's sitting inside the collar and the outside bar. Go over top of this 1/2 inch guide. We're going to be following around the first roller, again going around the dancing arm and over the top roller. On this machine, we're going to be running between, there's a roller here and then there's an upper support. This would be here if you are doing printed registered film. This machine is not set up for that, so there is no brake installed. But if you have a brake, we will explain exactly how that works in a later video. So let's pull down on the film, give ourselves a few feet of slack. Take the edge, and what we're going to do is remove this guard. We're going to go around the in-feed roller. And what you want to do is you want to tuck it underneath the seal head a good 2 to 3 inches at least, and kind of just shimmy it and slide it in there. Now if your bottom film is slit, or if it's being fed for the first time, you can also just push the top film down into this open cavity and then hit the advance key a few times. That'll have the bottom film lift the tail of the top film up and bring it into the seal die. And the goal here, and what we're ultimately doing, is when we run the first cycle and that seal plate comes down and seals the top film to the bottom, now that top film is going to be dragged through. So the bottom film is pulled through with the grippers. The top film is pulled through by welding itself to the bottom, and then as it advances, it pulls it through the remainder of the machine. So straighten out your film. Again, I like to leave some slack initially here because once it welds and advances forward, if it doesn't have a really good grab, there is a chance it'll end up pulling away and ripping from the bottom film. Again, our safeties are made, so I'm going to hit the safety key. Now, since our heaters have been on this whole time, we're up to temperature. I'm at 93 degrees on the forming and 133 on the sealing. It's normal to see these overshoot. Initially, they could overshoot 5 to 10 degrees, and then eventually they will regulate and probably only go plus or minus 4 or 5 degrees, depending on your heater configuration and the specific machine. So now that our temps are up, what we got to look at is our status up here. So at the top of the screen, it's going to say status. Then you're going to see 3 lights. These lights will either be red or green. Safeties made is currently green. If I lift up on a safety, forming guard, it'll clear, but as soon as all the safeties are made, that will stay green. Heaters ready will go green when these are up to temp. If that's red, we're not going to be able to run. Last thing is startup complete. To get this to go from red to green, we need to have 3 things on. We need our heaters on, we need our vacuum pump on, and we need our trim canister on. Now you can see that our startup is complete. Okay, so with our trim canister, vacuum pump, and heaters on, all of our lights are now green. We're ready to run. So we can hit the start key here. And what'll happen, and I want to explain the process so that you understand as a customer, the dies are going to come up. So the first thing you're going to hear is you're going to hear the dies lift. What's happening during this sequence is it's forming a pocket first. Air goes into the bucket, pushes the film up to heat it up, and it does that for about a second, second and a half. And then what it does is it vents the air from the bucket, and then we have air coming up into the head compartment of the forming station, pushing the film down and into our cavity. Depending on the divider set that's in there and the configuration, we could end up with 3 long narrow cavities, we could have 6 square cavities. It all just depends on what can fit in that die box. In this case, we're running what's called a 3x1, so it's 3 track. It's going to be divided up 3 ways in the machine direction, but it's only going to have 1 large pocket in the cross web direction. So we're going to be in a 3x1 configuration. So I'm going to hit the start key. It's going to form our pocket. At the same time it's forming the pocket, it's also removing the air from the seal die, and then it's sealing the film. So I'm going to hit start. Now it only ran 1 cycle because we're in manual mode. So next to the advanced down here, you're going to see what says manual mode. When it's in manual, it's going to run 1 cycle and stop. If I press the button to change it to auto mode, it's going to run continuously. It'll run 1 cycle, the dies will drop, and then it'll advance and move to the next cycle. So let's do that now. And as we can observe, our top film was grabbed by and welded to the bottom film, so we're going to start seeing this get pulled through the machine. Now regarding the top film, what I like to see is I like to see our dancing arm at about a level position with the film spindle. So in this case, the dancing arm is resting and coming back to the lower position. What happens is we just don't have a good amount of tension on the film. So one easy way to do this is to take your film guide collar, push it over a little bit to put a little bit of drag on the roll, tighten it back down, and then let's observe. Now we're getting the roller to come up and drop back down, but it's usually only dropping at approximately the spindle height or slightly lower. This is acceptable. We could put a little bit more tension on it if we want to. What we don't want to see is we don't want to see this being dragged so much that the dancing arm comes up and hits the aluminum support up here. We never want that to bottom out, because then that's going to put way too much tension on our film and cause other issues. Now let's come over here and take a look at our pockets and how our pockets look. As you can see, they're kind of crinkly. They don't look super clean. And this is going to be because most likely a combination of our film forming and heating times are not dialed in just right. So I'll just show you quickly how to make that adjustment. I'm going to go to the setup screen. The right arrow will get you over to this next screen, and here we see our film heating and film forming. We're at 1 second of heating time, 1.2 seconds of forming time. It's not going to let me change this, and that's because the controls are made to lock out the operator so they don't accidentally make changes that we don't want made. What you can do is go to Login, type in 152. This will give you basic level functionality. This will change to maintenance. We can hit OK. Under film heating, we can now, I'll bring this up. Let's go to 1.2. That would probably be okay, but I'm going to just bring this up to 1.4. If we go too high, what we're going to end up seeing and hearing actually is going to be a little bit of a squeal coming from the forming die. Let's hit the start key. And there we go. We just heard a little bit of a squeal there. I'm going to go to 1.3. You can already see how much nicer our pockets are coming out. Not nearly as crinkled and wrinkled. We're going to see nice clear corners in all four corners and a better, nicely defined package. I'm just going to hit the stop key. We'll turn off. At any time you're not running, I would recommend leaving your heaters on, but turn off your trim canister and vacuum pump. If you're not going to be running for more than an hour, you could definitely save on electricity by turning off your heaters, but if necessary, I would just leave them on so that the machine is always ready to run. So down on the discharge end, we're going to see that all of our packages are connected together, and that's just because we don't have our cutting knives turned on. And also what I'm going to observe while I'm down here is our film trim is going into the trim canister port. In this case, it's going in. Sometimes it'll feed on its own because we have suction here, and as it comes off, it'll just automatically get sucked in. But if you look on this side, we have part of our trim going through, but we also have a tail down here. So what we're going to do is after I turn the trim canister back on, I'm just going to come down here, tuck that in, and it's immediately going to start sucking and draw the film through the hoses. So let's come on down. Cutting system. On this machine, we need both on. This customer is getting a guillotine knife. When you're running guillotine knives, you need both cutting system and cutting system 2 on. If you're just running a single flying knife, you'll only need the regular cutting system on. If you're unsure, talk to either your distributor or you can give JVR a call and we'll explain exactly what you need on for your specific application. But in this case, we're going to turn them both on. I'm going to turn the trim canister back on. I'm going to turn our vacuum pump back on. We're going to start cycling again, and we'll go down to the discharge end to see what's going on. So now our trim is getting pulled in on both sides. I'm going to turn it back into auto mode. And after a few cycles, you'll see our packages coming out cut. So now we know that our cutting system is working properly. Okay, so now our machine is ready to run. It's set up, the film is through, everything is turned on. We have all green lights on. So at this point, you can start loading your product. This is our loading area right here. On a machine like this is the longer RI version. You do have a pretty good sized loading area. So you could have a front side operator and you could technically have a back side operator, or you could have 2 front sides. All of the open pockets are usable. You can fill them with your product as needed. And at any point, if you need to stop to catch up, you can hit the stop key. Another quick tip, if you would like to slow the machine down, right now we're running at 7.4 cycles a minute based on all of our settings and what we're running. If we wanted to speed it up or slow it down, there's a number of settings that could be changed. I usually advise not changing them on your own. The only one that you can do on your own is go into Setup, second screen over, and right here you'll see Delay. This is just a straight delay time. Right now I have it set to 0. So with all of our settings in place, I'm running 7.4 cycles a minute with no delay. If I want to add a 1 second delay, I can change this without having to enter a password. I can then go back to the run screen, hit the start key and start running. And after a cycle or two, you're going to notice our cycles per minute will change. Right now we're at 7.4. And now we're at 6.5. So if we wanted to slow that down even more, we could add additional time into that delay. But now with the pockets formed and ready to run, you'll just start placing your product in. It's going to go through. The die will lift up over here. It'll vacuum, remove the air, seal the plastic. It'll discharge, and then it'll cut it up, and then you'll have product come out the opposing end. I hope this video was helpful and informative. If you have any questions at all, please give us a call. We are open from 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, Eastern Time. You can email andrew@jvrinc.com, or you can call our offices at 716-206-2500. Thanks again.